This video was made possible by NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/vpen and get a 2-year plan at a super discount. More on that in a moment. The war in Ukraine has turned the global political agenda upside down. Suddenly, the eyes of the whole world have shifted back to Europe, Russia, and Ukraine, and oil and gas seem to be the hot topics. However, have you ever heard the expression, "Don't let the urgent things prevent you from taking care of the important things"? Well, that is exactly what the United States, and particularly Joe Biden's administration, is doing. You see, VisualPolitik fans, the White House is very clear that in the long term, Asia remains the #1 priority. So far from looking the other way, what they want in Washington is precisely to step on the accelerator. They hope to take advantage of the unease, the fear generated by the Russian invasion, and the fact that now, suddenly, the United States has once again become the ally of choice, the friend everyone wants to have. And so, at the end of May 2022, in the midst of the war in Ukraine and while the Pentagon continued to send more and more weapons to the European front, US President Joe Biden made an important visit to South Korea and Japan, two close allies of the United States that lately have been frantically trying to strengthen their ties with the US power at all levels. By the way, this visit was celebrated with fireworks and a joint air show by the usual annoying neighbors.
Russian and Chinese jets patrol East Asia skies as Biden visits. Hours after Biden leaves Asia, North Korea launches a suspected ICBM and 2 other missiles.
The fact is that, as we have already mentioned here and there, the United States has been promoting a significant network of alliances throughout the Asia-Pacific region for years. And if in recent years the North American policy has been practically limited to closer military ties, now the Biden administration wants to do the same in the political and economic fields. As Vice President, Biden was part of the administration that led the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement, that was later abandoned by Donald Trump in one of the great mistakes of US foreign policy. The White House is now studying how to resume that line of work, all with a threefold goal. 3 objectives that the United States considered indispensable in order to remain the #1 power in the Asia-Pacific region. The first of these, which we have already discussed at length in past videos, involves curbing the expansion of Chinese influence and demonstrating that the United States is still an essential player, even if this means taking a much tougher, more active and belligerent line on Taiwan.
Biden vows to defend Taiwan in apparent US policy shift.
And here is one thing to keep in mind. As much as the White House and the Secretary of State tend to qualify the president's words after the fact to make it clear the United States has not changed its position on its policy of strategic ambiguity, which basically involves not making it clear when and how Taiwan would be defended, it doesn't matter. Biden's repeated assertion that the US would intervene actively and militarily to defend Taiwan is no accident, but a statement of intent. The second major objective is to try to stimulate a 3-way relationship with 2 of its closest allies, South Korea and Japan. In other words, Washington wants these 2 countries to improve their relations and put their old diplomatic conflicts behind them once and for all in order to build a strong democratic front in the region. We are, after all, talking about 2 of the wealthiest and most technologically advanced countries in the world. 2 countries that combined have a GDP of $7 trillion and a military budget that could reach $150 billion per year. In other words, we would be talking about one of the strongest duos in the world. Finally, the third point, Washington's major third objective is to promote a network of alliances to achieve greater military, political, and economic integration, especially economic, with the countries of the region. Well, during his latest trip, Biden gave us many clues about what Uncle Sam's new foreign policy would look like. These VisualPolitik viewers are the plans that the Biden administration has for keeping China no more than a minor player. But before we continue, are you aware of how necessary it is nowadays to have a VPN? Summer is just around the corner, and I'm sure many of you are thinking about taking a vacation, right? Well, don't forget to pack NordVPN in your suitcase. In fact, using NordVPN when you're planning your trip can help you source cheaper flights, rental cars, and hotel bookings. And not only that, are you going to another country but want to continue watching your favorite series? With NordVPN servers, you'll be sure to be able to access your country's content whilst traveling anywhere in the world. But is browsing speed affected by NordVPN? Well, not only is it fast, but according to an independent study study by AV Test, Nord is the fastest VPN on the planet. What's more, you can use it on all types of devices: Android, Windows, Macs, Linux, and with the same account, you can include up to 6 different devices. Don't wait any longer. Make the most of your internet experience and take advantage of a special offer for the VisualPolitik community. Go to nordvpn.com/vpin and get a 2-year plan for the price of 1 soda a month. And if you change your mind after trying it, don't worry. NordVPN has a 30-day money-back guarantee. We'll leave you a link in the description. And now, let's get cracking.
A Premier Summit.
It may be surprising, but if there is one thing that evidence tells us, is that international relations are very, very much influenced by the personal relationships between the various political leaders.
In international relations, all politics is personal because it's all ultimately based on trust, and trust only flows from personal, not friendly, candid relationships with your counterpart, so you don't have to wonder about intentions. Vice President Joe Biden in South Korea in 2013.
And guess what? The US leader's visits to South Korea was such a success that Biden and the new South Korean president seem to have hit it off very well. But obviously, this is not a soap opera, so here the bromance is a bit inconsequential to us. And at VisualPolitik, we are here mainly concerned with the facts. Well, on the political front, in October of 2021, the United States announced the creation of a new Asia-Pacific cooperation framework, the so-called Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, the new IPEF. And yes, South Korea has been invited to be one of its founding members. And of course, Yoon has accepted. Now, what is this framework, and why on earth would Washington want to create a new international forum? If the United States could simply rejoin the CPTPP, which is now led mainly by Japan and has become the trending club. Well, unlike the CPTPP, the IPEF is not a free trade agreement that seeks to eliminate tariffs and trade barriers. For the time being, its main intention is to promote the economic integration of the 14 founding countries. That is, for example, to promote close regulatory exchange experiences and promote cooperation agreements in areas such as technology, the digital economy, clean energy, and the fight against corruption. And above all, more than anything else, what the forum seeks is to strengthen supply chains between member countries so they do not have to depend so much on China. Let's not kid ourselves, we are talking about a forum whose mission does not yet seem very clear, but it seems that Washington aspires for this forum to be one of the central axes of US foreign policy and to function as a counterweight to any integration movement led by China, as is the case of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the RCEP. There is even speculation that in the medium term, the US government's idea is that this new framework will eventually give rise to a new, much broader free trade and economic cooperation agreement. An agreement that would allow, for instance, the promotion of initiatives on strategic issues such as microchips, the launch of which is greatly affecting the automotive, technological, and military industries around the world, including, of course, the US industry. In fact, just after Biden's visit to South Korea and after South Korea agreed to join IPEF, 2 important announcements were made. Check this out.
South Korea's SK announces $195 billion investment for chips, batteries, bio through 2026. Samsung to invest $355 billion to cement lead in chip biosectors.
To give you an idea, these 2 investments combined represent the equivalent of the entire GDP of countries such as Norway or Israel. In other words, overnight, this industry has become South Korea's national priority. Coincidence? Hardly. But let's not stop there. In addition to the IPEF, Biden and Yoon also reached important military agreements, such as increasing the US deterrent forces deployed in the area to deal with North Korean provocations, as well as the frequency and quantity with which strategic weapons would be deployed if Pyongyang steps out of line. Joint military exercises will also be resumed, as regularly as they were conducted before former President Moon cancelled many maneuvers to avoid angering Kim Jong-un. And that's not all. There is also speculation that South Korea could unilaterally put an end to the military restrictions that Xi Jinping and Moon Jae-in agreed in order to stop the retaliation with which Beijing punished South Korea after the United States deployed the THAAD missile shield in South Korea. We are talking about what is known as the Three No's Agreement. Under this agreement, South Korea pledged first that there would be no more anti-missile systems in the country, secondly, that Seoul would not join any US-led regional anti-missile system, and thirdly, that it would not be part of any military alliance involving South Korea, Japan, and the United States at the same time. All in exchange for China putting an end to the economic reprisals that, for example, caused Hyundai's sales in China to plummet by 64%, forced the Lotte Group to liquidate all its operations in China, and halted the transit of Chinese tourists to Seoul. Well, Be that as it may, the agreement now seems to be kaput. However, it remains to be seen how Seoul will manage the aftermath. In any case, the relationship with Seoul is far from the only card Biden hopes to play. He is doing exactly the same with Japan. The land of the rising sun has not only committed to expanding its military budget, strengthening its political role in the region, and even trying to improve its relationship with Seoul. It is also, and above all, increasing its engagement with the United States and the latter's closest allies. For example, Japan has signed significant military agreements with Australia and the United Kingdom. In this way, the United States is creating a coalition capable of restraining China on its own. Of course, in this area, bilateral relations are not the only ace Washington has up its sleeve.
Road to deterrence.
In addition to boosting bilateral relations, the Biden administration's other major priority is to consolidate half-built military alliances. I'm talking particularly about the Quad. We're not going to give you many details about it because we specifically dedicated a video to it here on VisualPolitik in the past. But it is true that following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the United States now wants to step on the accelerator to finish fleshing out an alliance formed by the United States, Japan, India, and Australia. An alliance that met in Tokyo just after Biden's trip to South Korea and has brought with it some new developments. For example, Quad leaders have now agreed to launch major maritime initiative, the Indo-Pacific Partnership for Maritime Domain Awareness, or IPMDA. There's a lot of acronyms in this.
Quad leaders roll out major initiative to improve monitoring maritime activities across Indo-Pacific.
And what exactly is this for? The idea is that the new partnership will allow increased real-time monitoring of the Indo-Pacific seas by member countries. And we are not only talking about a military function. This initiative will also make it possible to control the navigation of the so-called dark ships, vessels that sail with their detection systems disconnected and that are often linked to illegal fishing, smuggling, or trade with countries sanctioned by the international community, as is the case with North Korea, for example. And it goes even further. The four nations of the Quad have also agreed to the creation of the Quad Cybersecurity Partnership.
Quad calls for collective approach to enhance cybersecurity. The Quad countries called for a collective approach to enhance cybersecurity and said they will coordinate capacity building programs in the Indo-Pacific region under the Quad Cybersecurity Partnership.
Of course, it's not all good news. India has refused to strongly condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine because it fears Vladimir Putin's country will cancel deliveries of military equipment. Meanwhile, and this is something we will talk about in a future video, in Australia, the Labour Party has come to power and there is a fear that the new government in Canberra wants to cool its growing hostility to China in order to redirect trade relations and get Beijing to cancel the tariffs with which it is hoped to punish the Australian economy. Be that as it may, if one thing is clear, it is that in recent years there has been a 180-degree turnaround. The US position in the Asia-Pacific becoming the strongest it has been in a very long time, with South Korea, Japan, Australia, and the alliances that are being forged, such as the Quad and the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. The Biden administration hopes to consolidate the United States' position as a major power in the Asia-Pacific. While, until relatively recently, everything pointed to China taking the upper hand, the shift in US political strategy has changed everything, both in the European and Pacific theater. Of course, the game is not yet over, and the question is, will Biden's plans come to fruition? Will the US strategy succeed, and will Washington succeed in weakening the power and influence of Russia and China at the same time? Leave us your comments below if you found this video interesting, and don't forget to like and subscribe to all of us here at VisualPolitik. All the best, and I'll see you next time.